The difficulties of being drunk alone. A few weeks ago, I was scrolling through a paranormal forum, hunting for my next video idea, when I stumbled on a post about the Starlight Hotel, a crumbling relic in rural Nevada. The post was by a woman named Sarah Klein, a former guest who'd stayed in room 13. She described finding a pocket watch that ticked backward and showed her faces in her dreams. Faces of people she'd wronged. Her last post was haunting. It said my name. It knows what I hid. The thread was chaos. Some called it fake, others linked it to the hotel's history of missing guests, covered up by its owners. Sarah's words gripped me, cold and sharp, like a hand around my throat, stirring a dread I couldn't shake. I tried to track her down. Her profile, her email, anything, but she was gone. Her account deleted. That watch haunted me, its mystery clawing at my thoughts, making my heart race with fear and curiosity. I'm sharing this story because I feel like Sarah's still out there, trapped by whatever she found, and maybe telling this will keep it from finding me. I'm Nathan Hayes, and I've spent the last 3 years running from my family, my dad's judgment, my betrayal of my sister Claire, the guilt that drowns in me every day. Claire and I were close once, fixing cars, sharing secrets, until I lied about her role in our cousin's death when we were kids, blaming her to save myself. Her hurt eyes haunt me, my anxiety flaring every time I think of her, of how I broke our bond. I went to the Starlight Hotel, a rundown dive off a Nevada highway, to drink alone, to forget. The vodka bottle was my only company. It burned a temporary shield against the past. The hotel was a wreck, peeling wallpaper, cracked mirrors, a neon sign buzzing erratically outside my window in room 13. The air was thick with mildew and something sour, like old blood. I was halfway through the bottle, the room spinning, when I found a cracked pocket watch on the nightstand, its face warm, too warm, like it was alive. I opened it, my hands trembling, and saw my initials, NH, engraved inside next to words, truth for silence. My breath caught, my chest tight, as whispers filled the room, soft but sharp. Nathan, you buried the truth. My heart pounded, my mind screaming I'd imagined it, misread it. But the whispers followed, slithering through the room, my name a knife in my brain. I clutched the watch, unable to drop it, its warmth crawling up my arm, my anxiety urging me to run but chaining me to the chair. Outside, the Nevada night was too still, the stars too bright, like eyes watching me. I stumbled to my car, the watch in my pocket, my hands shaking, the whispers weaving into my guilt, my failures, a flood I couldn't stop. I kept the watch on my desk. It was ticking, seeping into my dreams. Every night, I saw faces. Claire, our cousin Tommy, my mom, their eyes hollow, their mouths stretched in silent screams, pointing at me, accusing me. They whispered my name. Claire's. My dad's. Their voices twisting into my guilt, my shame, until I couldn't breathe. My mirror showed shadows moving, hands reaching. Gone when I turned, my heart hammering, my mind fraying. I felt watched, in diners, gas stations, the dark corners of my thoughts. The watch was alive, I knew it. Its hands ticking backward, revealing new engravings, names, dates, truths like hidden blame and broken trust next to dates yet to come. My anxiety screamed it was a delusion, but my heart knew it was real, too real. I called my dad, desperate for his voice to anchor me. He was cold, said I was a coward running from my mistakes. You're like your mother, he spat, his words slicing deep, reminding me of her death when I was 11, my fault for not speaking up. I touched the watch, its warmth soothing, and whispered, "If I fix things with Claire, I'll be better." The next day she texted, her tone soft, saying she'd visit. It felt like hope, but the whispers turned cruel. You failed, Claire. You'll fail them all. My phone glitched. Old texts from Claire appearing, new but hateful, accusing me of destroying her, my mind spiraling, unsure what was real. I researched the Starlight Hotel online. My hands trembling, the watch warm in my pocket. It closed in 2001. After a string of vanishings, guests disappearing, their records erased by the owners who claimed they'd checked out. Locals whispered of a keeper of truths, a spirit born from a maid's death, Margaret Cole, who tried to expose a guest's crime. Her journal, found in the ruins, described a watch that knew her sins. My stomach churned, my breath shallow. Was this her watch? Her curse, now mine? The whispers grew vicious, chanting my failures. My name a curse I couldn't escape. My reality slipping under the watch's pull. I tried to destroy the watch, smash it with a hammer. My heart racing as it stayed intact, its face gleaming, my initials glowing brighter. I buried it in the desert. But the next morning it was on my desk, showing a new engraving, Claire's Truth. My chest tightened, my mind screaming I'd betrayed her, lied to save myself. In my dreams, I saw her. Her face pale, her eyes wrong, glowing like the figures. Her voice accusing. You buried the truth. I'd wake gasping, the watch's warmth burning my skin, scars forming in the shape of names, pulsing with pain, my anxiety whispering I was losing it, but my heart knowing it was more. One night my room went dark, the power gone, the air thick with a sour metallic stench, like blood and ash. The watch glowed faintly on my desk. Though I hadn't touched it, its ticking deafening. Nathan, you buried the truth. I lit a candle, its flame trembling, and saw her. A woman in a maid's uniform, her face half shadow, her eyes glowing white, her smile too wide, showing teeth like shattered glass. You kept our truth, she said, her voice a chorus of Claire, Tommy, my mom, my own guilt, crushing me, drowning me. I screamed, the candle falling, plunging the room into darkness, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. When I lit another, she was gone. But the watch showed new names, engraved in blood red. My dad's, Claire's, mine, each with a truth, silence for betrayal. I ran outside. The Nevada streets alive with shadows, eyes in the streetlights, hands in the alleys, their shapes wrong, too fluid, too hungry. The air smelled of blood now, thick and choking, making my stomach churn, my mind scream. I saw the woman everywhere, in shop windows, in my car's rearview mirror. Her face clearer but not human, a mask stretched over something ancient, something that knew me. My dreams were full of her, standing in room 13, holding the watch, Claire beside her, her eyes glowing, her voice hers. You buried the truth. I'd wake trembling, the scars on my hands burning, my mind torn between reality and delusion, unable to trust my own eyes. I confided in my friend Daniel Foster, a paranormal investigator I'd met online, showing him the watch, my voice shaking, my chest tight with fear. His face pale, his eyes wide, like he'd seen a ghost. Get rid of it, Nathan, he said, his voice low, urgent. That's no watch. It's a trap. He told me about a friend who'd found a cursed relic in an old motel. A locket that whispered her secrets, drove her to madness. She's not just a ghost, Daniel said. She's the truth. The silence. I nodded, my hands clammy, my mind screaming. He was right, but I couldn't let go. The watch felt like part of me, its warmth in my blood, my bones, my soul. The truths grew, my desperation feeding them. The whispers relentless. I promised the watch I'd fix things with Claire, and she called, saying she missed me and wanted to meet. I promised I'd make my dad proud, and he texted, saying he forgave me. But the losses came. My savings drained on a scam repair. My phone fried, its screen glitching to show faces not mine. Claire's calls turned cruel, accusing me of ruining her life, though I hadn't seen her in years. My mirrors showed her face, then the women's, then mine, all wrong, all glowing. The watch ticking filled the night, blending with creaking floors, distant sobs, static from the TV. My heart pounding, my mind fraying, reality a thread I couldn't hold. In a moment of panic, my hands trembling, my mind clouded with fear and vodka, I pried open the watch's back, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a photograph, faded and torn, of a woman. Margaret Cole, holding the watch, her eyes hollow, her smile wrong. A note was tucked beside it, in shaky handwriting. The truth binds the keeper. Silence is the price. It was signed by Margaret, dated 2000. My breath caught, my chest tight, as the truth hit me. The watch wasn't just a curse. It was a chain, binding its keeper to the keeper of truths, to the hotel's secrets, to her hunger. Every promise I made fed her. Not just my money, but my guilt, my shame, my soul. The wins were bait, the losses her feast, draining me until I was a shell, a puppet. The woman wasn't just a spirit. She was the watch, the silence, the truths, and I was her latest keeper. My life rewritten by her will. I remembered Claire's warnings about my lies, how I'd ignored her, blamed her for Tommy's death, my guilt a weight I couldn't shake. The watch knew it, used it, twisting my mind, my reality. The woman's face wasn't just Margaret's, it was mine, Claire's, every keeper's, a reflection of our own failures, our silences. I wasn't just Nathan anymore. I was part of her, part of the truth, and she was feeding me, growing stronger with every promise, my mind unraveling. My reality hers to shape. I found a box in my closet, one I hadn't touched in years, my hands shaking as I opened it, the watch warm beside me. Inside was a letter from Claire, written 3 years ago before our fight. My heart stopped as I read it. My scars burning, the whispers deafening. She'd stayed at the Starlight Hotel as a teen, found the watch, heard its whispers, made promises to fix our family, to be better. It knows my truth, she wrote. I left it, but it followed me. Don't go there, Nathan. The letter was dated the day she cut me off, her words cold, final, like she was protecting me. The truth crashed over me. She'd been a keeper. Her silence a lie to save me, her betrayal a facade to keep me away from the hotel, from the watch. The woman's face in my dreams was Claire's because she was part of her now. Her soul trapped in the truth, her eyes pleading for me to stop. But the watch had chosen me, waited for me to find it, to take her place, to pay her debt. It wasn't just my guilt. It was Claire's, Margaret's, the hotel's, a chain of silences binding us all. The whispers wanted more. My dad, my future, everyone I loved, tying them to the same curse, the same hunger. My mind screamed, my heart breaking as I realized I'd failed Claire again, brought the watch back into our lives. My reality no longer mine's. I decided to end it. My heart was heavy with fear, guilt, and rage. I drove back to the Starlight Hotel, the watch burning in my pocket, the building looming like a crypt, its neon sign flickering, the air thick with blood and ash. The whispers a chorus. Nathan, you buried the truth. The halls were darker now, the mirrors glowing, names and truths scrawled in red, my name everywhere. I reached room 13, the watch glowing, its hands ticking backward, showing my dad's name, Claire's, mine, truths unending. The woman was there, her maid's uniform dripping blood. Her face mine, Claire's, Margaret's, her eyes glowing, her smile splitting, revealing something ancient, with too many eyes, too many mouths. "One last truth," she said. Her voice was a scream of every keeper, every guest, every lie, crushing me, drowning me. I gripped the watch, my scars burning, my hands trembling, and promised everything, my life, my soul, Claire's freedom, to break the curse. I smashed the watch with a brick, my hands bleeding, the metal screaming, the walls shaking, the shadows lunging, their claws tearing into me, my blood hot, my vision fading. I felt my life draining, my guilt, my shame pouring out. But I kept smashing, my heart screaming for Claire, for my dad, for myself. The hotel roared, the ceiling cracking, and the world went black. My last thought of Claire's letter, her warning, I'd ignored. When I woke, I was in my car, parked miles away in the Nevada desert, my hands scarred with names, glowing faintly, pulsing with pain. The watch was gone, my pocket empty, but I felt it still, in my blood, my bones, my soul. The whispers were silent, but I felt them waiting, lurking. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Claire's face, then the woman's, then mine. All wrong, all hers. I drove to my dad's house, desperate to see him, to make sure he was safe, my heart pounding with fear and hope. But the house was empty, the windows dark with no sign of him. On the doorstep was a hotel key, glowing faintly, a note inside. "You buried the truth. I don't know where I am now." I'm back in my apartment, the key on my table, its edges glowing, the air thick with whispers I can't hear but feel. My scars burn at night, the names glowing, pulling me back to the Starlight Hotel, to her. I see her in shadows, in mirrors, in the faces of strangers, her smile always the same, hungry, endless. I called my dad, but his number's gone, his voice a memory I can't trust. I texted Claire, but the messages failed, her face in my dreams the only answer. I don't know if they're real anymore, or if they were ever mine, or if the watch rewrote them, erased them from my life, my reality. I want to warn you, to tell you to stay away from the Starlight Hotel, to never touch strange relics, to never bury truths you can't face. But the whispers stop me, filling my throat with ash and fear, my mind torn between what's real and what's hers. The watch is out there in the ruins, in someone's hands, waiting for the next silent soul. It's ticking eternal, its truths unending. And I wonder if I'm still running, or if I'm just a keeper now, trapped in her truth, forever bound to the silences I couldn't break.
Forgotten beneath the fluorescent lights in the stop-in shop on the edge of Greyhaven. Maine buzzed like a swarm of dying flies, casting a pale glow over the empty aisles. It was 2:13 a.m. My third week working the graveyard shift, and the store felt like a crypt. I'm Avery Quinn, 25, and I'd moved to this foggy coastal town to outrun my past. A screaming match with my sister, Lily, that ended with me saying, I wish she'd vanish. I hadn't spoken to her since, and the guilt was a stone in my gut. Greyhaven was supposed to be a reset, but the town had a way of making you feel watched, like the fog itself had eyes. The stop-in shop was a 24/7 relic, its shelves stocked with canned soup and off-brand chips, the air thick with the smell of bleach and stale coffee. My job was simple: stock shelves, ring up the occasional trucker, and don't lose it in the silence. Most nights, it was just me and Jamie, the other night clerk, who spent her breaks scrolling her phone and telling creepy stories about the town. Tonight, she was late, leaving me alone with the hum of the freezers, and the faint creak of the building settling. I was restocking the cereal aisle when I noticed her. Nora, the librarian from the Greyhaven Public Library across the street. She was standing outside, her gray coat flapping in the wind, staring through the glass doors. She'd been doing this for days, always leaving something on the counter when I wasn't looking. A thermos of tea, a dog-eared book, a note. For Avery. Stay awake. Her eyes were too sharp, like she saw right through me, and it made my skin crawl. I ignored her, focusing on the boxes of cornflakes. But when I glanced up, she was gone. In her place was a small, leather-bound journal on the counter, no bigger than a paperback. I hadn't heard the door chime. My hands shook as I opened it, finding a single page with a sketch, a jagged circle with a slash, like a broken eye, and words in Nora's spidery handwriting. They see you, Avery. Be careful. My stomach twisted. Was she messing with me? Or was something else going on? The next night, Nora was back, standing in the same spot, her face half hidden by the fog. I caught her slipping a small object onto the counter. A porcelain doll, no taller than my hand, with black button eyes and a stained dress. A note was pinned to it. They know what you did. My heart pounded. I hadn't told anyone about Lily, how I'd blamed her for our mom's breakdown, how I'd cut her off. I threw the doll in the trash, but when I turned around, it was back on the counter, its eyes glinting under the lights. I radioed Jamie, who was finally at work, stocking the back. Nora's creeping me out, I said, my voice tight. She keeps leaving stuff. Books. A doll. Notes. What's her deal? Jamie laughed through the static. Nora's always been weird. She's obsessed with Greyhaven's history. You know about the old cemetery. It used to be where the park is now, down by the cliffs. They turned it into a park in the 1900s, but botched the exhumations. Bones still under the grass, they say. Nora thinks the dead are pissed, tied to some spirit called the Ashen Veil. It goes after people with guilt, makes them see things. You got any skeletons, Avery? Very funny, I muttered, but my chest tightened. I'd read about the nocebo effect in a psych class. How believing something bad could make it feel real. Was that what this was? My guilt over Lily messing with my head? But the journal, the doll, it was too real. And last night, I'd heard whispers in the store, faint like voices under the floor. Avery, you lied. A week later, the town was in a panic. A local kid, Mia, had gone missing in Greyhaven Park. She'd been hiking with friends, wandered off, and didn't come back. Sheriff Vega came by the store, his face grim, asking if we'd seen her. Search and rescue teams were combing the park, and they needed volunteers. I signed up, thinking it might distract me from the creeping dread. The park was a sprawling green space by the cliffs, its oak trees twisted like skeletal hands, the air heavy with salt and something sour, like rot. During the search, I was stuck close to Jamie, our flashlights cutting through the fog. The park felt wrong at night, the grass too soft, like it might swallow you whole. I found a small plaque half buried near a tree, in memory of those who rest here. My breath caught. The cemetery history wasn't just a story. Jamie whispered. They say the veil wakes up when someone new comes to town. It smells your secrets. I laughed it off. But then I saw it. A symbol scratched into the tree. The same broken eye from Nora's journal. My flashlight flickered, and for a second, I thought I saw a shape in the fog, tall, thin, its edges blurring like smoke. It vanished when I blinked, but my pulse raced. We didn't find Mia, but the symbol stayed with me, burned into my mind. The stop-in shop was a prison now. The fluorescent lights flickered, casting shadows that moved when I wasn't looking. The doll kept reappearing, on shelves, in the break room, once in my bag. Its eyes seemed darker each time, like they were watching. I started hearing whispers everywhere. In the hum of the freezers, the creak of the floor. Avery. You heard her. My head throbbed. Thoughts jumbling. I've read about schizophrenia, how stress could trigger hallucinations. Was that happening? Or was something here feeding on my guilt? I confronted Nora at the library, a dim building that smelled of mildew and old paper. She was shelving books, her hands trembling. Why are you doing this? I demanded, slamming the doll on the counter. The notes, the journal, this thing. What's wrong with you? Her eyes were sad, almost hollow. I'm trying to warn you, she whispered. The veil sees your heart, Avery. It saw mine. I lost someone too. Lost who? I snapped. But she just handed me an old newspaper clipping. Greyhaven Cemetery Scandal, 1903. Thousands of graves were improperly relocated. Librarian Nora Ellis blames town for unrest. Nora? She looked 60, not over 100. My head spun, a dull ache spreading. Was I losing it? The search for Mia continued, and I kept volunteering, desperate to escape the store. The park was a maze at night, the trees leaning in, their roots clawing at the ground. I found another symbol, carved into a rock near the cliffs. And nearby, a rusted locket with the broken eye mark. It felt warm, like it had been held. I heard a whisper, Avery, and spun, but no one was there. The fog thickened, and I saw her, Mia, standing in the grass, her eyes too wide, too black. She opened her mouth, and a voice that wasn't hers said, You judged her. You'll judge yourself. I ran, tripping over roots, my breath ragged. When I found the search party, they said I'd been gone 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. They hadn't seen Mia. Sheriff Vega pulled me aside. You okay, Quinn? You look like you saw a ghost. I didn't tell him about the whispers, the symbols, the girl who wasn't there. Back at the store, I found another note in my locker. It knows your shame. My hands shook so hard I dropped it. Shame? I thought of Lily, how I'd screamed I hated her, how I'd blamed her for everything. The guilt was a knife, twisting deeper. I dug into Nora's past at the library, finding more clippings. In 1903, the town had rushed the cemetery relocation, leaving bodies behind. Nora Ellis. Then a young librarian had protested, saying the dead were restless. She'd vanished soon after. Rumored to have cursed the town with some ritual, black magic, they said, to wake the veil. But Nora was here now, leaving me gifts. Was she a ghost? A hallucination? Or something worse? The doll was on the counter when I got to work, its dress wet, like it had been pulled from the sea. A new note was pinned to it. You can't hide. I heard my sister's voice in the freezer's hum. You said you wished I was gone. I hadn't spoken to her in months, but the guilt was crushing, making the whispers louder. The lights flickered, and the store grew cold, the air heavy with that sour, rotting smell. Jamie noticed my paranoia. Avery, you're scaring me, she said one night, her voice soft. You're seeing things, hearing things. Maybe it's stress. Or, your head. She didn't say schizophrenia, but I heard it. I'd been Googling symptoms, Hallucinations, paranoia, voices. Was this the nocebo effect, my fear making it real? Or was the veil here, using my guilt to get inside me? I found a stray dog outside the store, a mangy thing with yellow eyes that growled at the doll. I named it Scout, hoping it would keep me grounded. But Scout wouldn't come near the counter, hackles raised, staring at something I couldn't see. That night, the doll was in the freezer, its eyes frosted over. A note read, "It binds to those who hurt." I threw it out again, but it was back by morning, dry, its eyes blacker than ever. The final search for Mia was a nightmare. The park was a fog-choked labyrinth, the symbols everywhere, on trees, rocks, even the plaque, glowing faintly. Scout came with me, whining, his tail tucked. My flashlight died and my phone was useless, the screen glitching with that broken eye mark. I heard my name, over and over, from the grass, the trees, the cliffs. In a clearing I saw her, Mia, or something wearing her face. Her mouth opened, a chorus of voices spilling out. You judged her. You lied. You hurt her. The veil emerged, a shadow too tall, too thin. Its edges dissolved into the fog. Its eyes were fractured, like the symbol, and it reached into me, pulling out memories. Lily's tears, Mom's broken voice, my own screams. I saw Nora, holding a locket, her face sad. I just wanted to help you. I slashed at the veil with a knife I'd brought, but it was air, nothing. The visions grew. Lily, alone, Mom, collapsing, Nora, her hands stained with ink or blood. Then the truth. Nora had died days ago, found in the library with a locket and a note. For Avery. You reminded me of him. Her brother, lost in the cemetery scandal, blamed her for the unrest. She'd seen him in me, tried to warn me. I stumbled out of the park at dawn. Scout beside me. The search party finding me shaking, babbling about symbols and shadows. They said Mia was still missing. No one believed me about the veil. Back at the store, I found a final note in Nora's handwriting. Forgive yourself. The lights flickered, and a whisper curled around me. Avery. Scout growled, his eyes fixed on the doll, now on the counter again, its dress torn. I'm still in Greyhaven, still working the graveyard shift, still hearing my name in the hum of the freezers, the creak of the floor. Scout stays close, but he won't go near the counter. The doll is locked in a drawer, but I hear it sometimes, tapping, like it wants out. The veil isn't gone, it's in me, in the guilt I carry for Lily, for Nora, for every harsh word I can't take back. The universe sees it all. Every lie, every judgment, every hurt your cause. It gives back what you give, and I'm learning that the hard way. So, listen, when you're out there, in the dark of your own life, think before you speak, before you judge. The shadows are waiting, and they know your secrets. Choose kindness, or they'll find you, whispering your name.
The last route. In the quiet town of San Isidro, a coastal barangay in the Philippines, nestled between mangrove forests and the South China Sea. The air carried whispers of old warnings. Across the ocean, in a small Florida town called Cypress Hollow, the same whispers echoed through the cypress swamps. Both places shared a secret. After sunset, no one trusted mirrors, and certain roads were never driven alone. Marco Reyes, a 32-year-old Filipino-American, split his life between these two worlds. By day, he worked as a nurse in Miami. But by night, he drove for a ride-share app to send money to his family in San Isidro. His cousin Lita ran a sari-sari store there and swore by the old tales. Never look in a mirror after dark. and avoid the coastal road past the mangrove bridge at midnight. Marco laughed them off. Superstitions didn't pay for his mom's diabetes meds. One stormy night in Florida, Marco's app pinged with a high-paying request. $400 to drive from Cypress Hollow to Miami. A 3-hour trip through the swamp. The pickup was at 11:47 p.m., a time that made his skin prickle despite his skepticism. The passenger, listed only as E, needed a ride from a shuttered bait shop by Cypress Lake. Marco hesitated. His back ached and the storm was worsening, but the money was too good to pass up. He accepted. At the bait shop, a figure stood under a flickering neon sign. She was elderly, maybe 70, with silver hair tied in a bun, and a long black dress that seemed untouched by the rain. Her face was sharp, with eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. "Marco Reyes," she said, not asking but knowing as she slid into the back seat. Her voice had a cadence that reminded him of his Lola's bedtime stories. Half soothing, half ominous. "You're Filipino, yes?" she asked, her gaze fixed on him through the rearview mirror. Marco nodded, unnerved by her stare. "I have family in San Isidro," she continued. "We're going there tonight." Marco laughed nervously. "Ma'am, San Isidro's across the Pacific. You mean Naples, right? That's the destination." Her smile was thin. "Drive, Marco. You'll see." The road to Miami cut through Cypress Hollow's swamps, where gnarled trees loomed like sentinels. The GPS glitched, rerouting him onto a narrow path by the lake. "This isn't right," he muttered. But the app insisted. The woman, E, hummed a tune. Low, haunting, like a Kundiman mixed with a funeral dirge. Marco's hands tightened on the wheel. To calm his nerves, Marco turned on his dashcam, a habit from late-night drives. It also recorded audio capturing his small talk. "So, what's in San Isidro for you?" he asked. E's voice softened. "A reunion. Old debts to settle." She pulled a small device from her bag. A digital recorder. Its red light blinking. "I like to keep memories," she said, setting it on the seat. "Words have power, you know." As they drove, the storm intensified, and the radio crackled with static. Marco glanced at the rearview mirror, then froze. His reflection wasn't right. Her face was younger, her eyes hollow, and her mouth stretched too wide. He blinked, and the reflection was normal again. Lita's warning about mirrors after dark echoed in his mind. He angled the mirror away, heart pounding. The GPS led them deeper into the swamp, where the road narrowed to a single lane. Cypress Lake glimmered to their left, its surface rippling despite the still air. He spoke again, her voice now layered, as if multiple people whispered beneath it. "Do you remember San Isidro, Marco? The summer you were 15, by the mangrove bridge." Marco's breath caught. That summer he'd snuck out with friends to the bridge, daring each other to look into the water at midnight. He'd seen something. A face not his own staring back, pale and eyeless. He'd run home, never telling anyone, not even Lita. "How do you know that?" he demanded. E didn't answer. Instead, she played her recorder. Marco's voice filled the car. Not from tonight, but from that summer, laughing with his friends, then screaming. "How?" he gasped. But the recording shifted to another voice, soft and melodious. "You saw her, didn't you, Marco? The lady in the water, she's been waiting." The car stopped abruptly, though Marco hadn't touched the brake. The GPS showed their location as San Isidro. Impossible yet undeniable. The mangrove bridge loomed ahead, its wooden planks slick with rain. Across the water, Cypress Lake shimmered, as if the two places had merged. Figures emerged from the mangroves and cypresses, dozens of them, men and women, young and old. Their faces familiar yet wrong, like distorted reflections of people he knew. He stepped out, her movements fluid, like water flowing. "Come, Marco," she said, holding a small mirror. "It's time to pay your debt." The dashcam recorded everything, its lens capturing the figures forming a circle around the bridge. They chanted in a language Marco didn't know, but it resonated in his bones. Tagalog mixed with something ancient, like the Seminole chants he'd heard in Florida. He stumbled out, drawn by the chant. The mirror in his hand glowed, showing not his reflection but the face from that summer. Pale, eyeless, smiling. "You saw her," he said. "And she saw you. The lady in the water binds those who meet her gaze. You've been hers ever since." The figures closed in, their eyes gleaming like ease. Marco recognized some. His Tita from San Isidro, who'd vanished years ago. A nurse from Miami missing after a late shift. They were all connected, all bound by the same entity. "What does she want?" he whispered. "Knowledge," he replied. "Curiosity. The restless minds that seek her out. You drove tonight, seeking money, seeking answers. You brought yourself to her." The water beneath the bridge rippled, and something vast stirred below. A form too large for the shallow lake, its eyes countless and ancient. Marco's dashcam grew warm, its screen flickering with images not of the bridge but of other nights. Other drivers, other seekers. A jeepney driver in San Isidro, a cabbie in Florida. All drawn to this place, all consumed. The water rose, warm and glowing, lapping at his feet. The figures sang, their voices a lullaby of surrender. He thought of Lita, of his mom, of the life he'd fought for. With trembling hands he ripped the memory card from the dashcam and threw it into the mangroves. A desperate act to preserve some truth. The lady in the water laughed, a sound that shook the bridge. "Clever," she said through his mouth. "But who will believe?" The water closed over him, warm and endless. His last thought was of the memory card, hidden in the roots, waiting for someone to find it. 6 months later, Lita found a small plastic case in the mangroves while gathering firewood. The memory card inside was intact, its footage chilling. She uploaded it to a Filipino horror forum, where it went viral. Shared across the Philippines and the US, most called it a hoax. But a few, a journalist in Miami, a student in Manila, saw the truth. They planned trips to San Isidro and Cypress Hollow, drawn by questions that refused to stay buried. Beneath the bridge in the lake, the lady in the water sang, patient and eternal, waiting for her next curious soul. Island that never sleeps. It was supposed to be an adventure, a chance for me, a travel writer with a fascination for the macabre, to explore one of the most infamous locations in the world, Pavaglia Island. Nestled in the Venetian lagoon, this small, desolate island had earned a reputation as one of the most haunted places on Earth. Its history was steeped in tragedy. Plague victims burned and buried in a group mass, asylum patients subjected to horrific treatments, and countless souls left to rot in silence. But what began as curiosity quickly turned into something far darker. An encounter that would leave me questioning everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the spaces between. I arrived in Venice under the cover of darkness, the city's canals shimmering faintly beneath the moonlight. My guide, a grizzled fisherman named Luca, had reluctantly agreed to take me to Pavaglia after hours of persuasion and a hefty sum of money. "You won't find peace there," he warned as we boarded his small motorboat. "That island is cursed." His words lingered in my mind as we crossed the lagoon, the hum of the engine cutting through the eerie stillness. The closer we got to Pavaglia, the heavier the air felt, pressing down on me like an invisible weight. When the island finally came into view, it looked like something out of a nightmare. A crumbling bell tower jutting out from the mist, surrounded by skeletal trees and overgrown ruins. Luca dropped me off at the dilapidated dock, refusing to set foot on the island himself. "Be back here by sunrise," he muttered before speeding away, leaving me alone with the ghosts of Pavaglia. As I stepped onto the shore, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every sound, the rustle of leaves, the creak of decaying wood, seemed amplified, echoing unnaturally in the oppressive silence. Armed with only a flashlight and a notebook, I ventured toward the heart of the island, where the remains of the quarantine station and asylum loomed like specters from another time. The first thing I noticed was the smell, a sickly sweet odor that clung to the air, reminiscent of decay and burning flesh. It was subtle at first, almost imperceptible beneath the salty tang of the lagoon. But as I moved deeper into the ruins, it grew stronger, filling my nostrils and making my stomach churn. Inside the old asylum, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The walls were covered in peeling paint and graffiti. But there was something else, something alive. Shadows danced along the corridors, flickering in and out of existence like flames caught in a draft. Faint whispers echoed through the halls, overlapping in a cacophony of anguish and despair. They spoke in languages I didn't recognize, their tones pleading, angry, mournful, summoning every ounce of courage I possessed. I followed the sound, my footsteps muffled by layers of dust and debris. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the ground itself resisted my intrusion. When I reached the source, a small chamber deep within the building, I froze. Standing in the center of the room was a figure, a man dressed in tattered robes, his face obscured by shadows. "You shouldn't have come here," he rasped, his voice cold and hollow. Before I could react, the temperature plummeted. Frost crept along the walls, and the faint scent of burning incense filled the air. Suddenly, the floor beneath me cracked open, revealing a mass grave teeming with human bones. Phantom screams erupted from the depths, growing louder and more intense with each passing second. Panic surged through me as I bolted from the chamber, retracing my steps through the labyrinthine corridors of the asylum. But the landscape had shifted. Familiar landmarks were gone, replaced by endless hallways stretching impossibly far in every direction. Doors appeared where none had been before, leading to chambers filled with flickering candlelight and ghostly figures. One apparition stood out among the rest, a woman dressed in a blood-stained gown, her face pale and gaunt. She introduced herself as Maria, a plague victim who had been burned alive on the island centuries earlier. Her voice was soft yet tinged with sorrow as she recounted the tragic tale of how she and thousands of others had been abandoned to die. "We never left," she whispered, tears streaming down her translucent cheeks. "Not really." As she spoke, other figures emerged from the shadows, men, women, and children, all bearing expressions of anguish and despair. Some wore tattered clothing reminiscent of another era, while others appeared barely human, their forms flickering like candle flames caught in a draft. They surrounded me, closing in until I could feel their icy presence pressing against my skin. Desperate to escape, I stumbled backward, tripping over a loose floorboard and landing hard on the ground. That's when I saw it. A glowing sigil etched into the floor, pulsating with an eerie red light. Instinctively, I reached out to touch it, hoping it might offer some form of protection. Instead, the moment my fingers brushed against the symbol, the world dissolved into chaos. The ground shook violently, sending debris raining down from above. Phantom screams echoed through the air, growing louder and more intense with each passing second. Shadows danced across the walls, taking on forms too grotesque to describe. It was as though the spirits of every victim, every forgotten soul had come alive, demanding release. Finally, I emerged into an open courtyard bathed in moonlight. For a brief moment, I thought I was safe. Then, without warning, a figure materialized before me, a tall man dressed in black robes, his face obscured by a hood. He raised a skeletal hand, pointing directly at me. "You will join us," he hissed, his voice reverberating unnaturally in the confined space. Before I could scream, the vision faded, leaving me gasping for breath. The courtyard was empty once more, save for the oppressive sense of dread pressing down on me. Somehow, I managed to break free from the island. Whether the boat returned on its own or Luca somehow sensed my desperation, I will never know. All I remember is running faster than I ever had in my life. I burst into the dock and didn't stop until I reached the safety of the mainland, where Luca waited, his face pale with fear. That morning, I returned home cautiously, half expecting to find evidence of what I'd witnessed. Though I searched every corner of my apartment, nothing seemed out of place. Yet, the memory of that night continues to haunt me. Sometimes when I sit alone at my desk, I swear I can still hear the faint scratching of quills against parchment. And whenever I pass by a mirror, I half expect to see a spectral figure standing just over my shoulder. Because deep down, I know, one wrong decision, one careless moment, and everything can change in an instant. The Shadows of St. Francisville. It was supposed to be a weekend getaway, a chance for me, an amateur historian with a love for the macabre, to explore one of America's most infamous haunted sites, the Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. Nestled among ancient oak trees draped with Spanish moss, the plantation exuded an eerie charm that drew visitors from all over the world. Known as one of America's most haunted homes, it promised not just history, but also mystery. What I didn't expect was how deeply its secrets would entangle them in my life. I arrived on a humid Friday afternoon, the kind of weather that clings to your skin and makes every breath feel heavy. The Myrtles Plantation stood before me like a relic from another time, its white columns towering against the gray sky, its windows reflecting the storm clouds gathering overhead. It was beautiful yet unsettling, as if it carried centuries of sorrow within its walls. After checking in at the main house, which now operates as a bed and breakfast, I was shown to my room by a cheerful hostess who seemed oblivious to the weight of the stories surrounding the property. She pointed out various features: the antique furniture, the creaky wooden floors, the faint scent of lavender lingering in the air, and assured me I'd have a peaceful stay. But something about her forced cheerfulness felt off, like she was trying too hard to convince herself as much as me. That evening, I joined a small group for a guided tour of the plantation. Our guide recounted tales of tragedy and betrayal, painting vivid pictures of the lives lost within these walls. According to legend, 10 murders have taken place here, though historians debate the exact number. Among the most famous spirits said to haunt the plantation is Chloe, a slave accused of poisoning the family dinner out of jealousy. After being hanged for her alleged crime, her ghost reportedly began wandering the halls, often seen wearing a green turban. As we moved through the dimly lit rooms, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed alive, shifting subtly whenever I glanced away. When the tour ended, I decided to linger behind, drawn inexplicably to the parlor where Chloe's portrait hung prominently above the fireplace. Her eyes followed me no matter where I stood, piercing and accusing. "Why are you still here?" I whispered aloud, half joking. Before I could answer my own question, the lights flickered briefly, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through me as I fumbled for my phone's flashlight app. When the light returned moments later, I froze. Standing near the doorway was a woman dressed in tattered clothing, her face obscured by shadows. She wore a green turban wrapped tightly around her head. "You shouldn't have come," she rasped, her voice cold and hollow. Then, without warning, she vanished, leaving behind only the faint scent of burning wood. That night, sleep eluded me. Every sound echoed unnaturally loud: the creak of floorboards, the rustle of curtains swaying despite the absence of wind. At first I told myself it was just the old house settling, but deep down, I knew better. This wasn't normal. Around midnight I heard it, a soft humming coming from somewhere outside my door. Curiosity got the better of me and I stepped cautiously into the hallway, clutching a candlestick for protection. The melody grew louder as I approached the staircase leading to the lower level. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the house itself resisted my intrusion. When I reached the bottom, I found myself in the dining room, where a long table stretched across the center of the space. Candles floated eerily above the surface, their flames flickering wildly despite the lack of breeze. Seated at the far end was a figure, a man dressed in 19th century attire, his face pale and gaunt. He gestured toward the empty chair beside him. "Join us," he murmured, his voice rich yet tinged with sorrow. Summoning courage, I asked who he was. Instead of answering, he simply smiled, a grim expression that sent shivers racing down my spine. Then, without warning, the candles extinguished themselves, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through me as I bolted back upstairs, retracing my steps through the labyrinthine corridors of the plantation. But the landscape had shifted. Familiar landmarks were gone, replaced by endless hallways stretching impossibly far in every direction. Doors appeared where none had been before, leading to chambers filled with flickering candlelight and ghostly figures. One apparition stood out among the rest, a young girl dressed in a tattered dress, her face pale and gaunt. She introduced herself as Sarah Woodruff, one of the children rumored to have died on the property. Her voice was soft yet tinged with sadness as she recounted the tragic tale of how she and her siblings had fallen ill after eating poisoned food prepared by Chloe. "We never left," she whispered, tears streaming down her translucent cheeks. Not really. As she spoke, other figures emerged from the shadows. Men, women, and children, all bearing expressions of anguish and despair. Some wore tattered clothing reminiscent of another era, while others appeared barely human, their forms flickering like candle flames caught in a draft. They surrounded me, closing in until I could feel their icy presence pressing against my skin. Desperate to escape, I stumbled backward, tripping over a loose floorboard and landing hard on the ground. That's when I saw it, a glowing sigil etched into the floor, pulsating with an eerie red light. Instinctively, I reached out to touch it, hoping it might offer some form of protection. Instead, the moment my fingers brushed against the symbol, the world dissolved into chaos. The ground shook violently, sending debris raining down from above. Phantom screams echoed through the air, growing louder and more intense with each passing second. Shadows danced across the walls, taking on forms too grotesque to describe. It was as though the spirits of every victim, every forgotten soul, had come alive, demanding release. Finally, I emerged into an open courtyard bathed in moonlight. For a brief moment, I thought I was safe. Then, without warning, a figure materialized before me, a tall woman dressed in black robes, her face obscured by a hood. She raised a skeletal hand, pointing directly at me. "You will join us," she hissed, her voice reverberating unnaturally in the confined space. Before I could scream, the vision faded, leaving me gasping for breath. The courtyard was empty once more, save for the oppressive sense of dread pressing down on me. Somehow, I managed to break free from the plantation. Whether the doors unlocked themselves or I somehow willed them open, I will never know. All I remember is running faster than I ever had in my life. I burst out of the gates and didn't stop until I reached the safety of my car, parked several kilometers away. That morning I returned home cautiously, half expecting to find evidence of what I had witnessed. Though I searched every corner of my apartment, nothing seemed out of place. Yet, the memory of that night continues to haunt me. Sometimes, when I sit alone at my desk, I swear I can still hear the faint scratching of quills against parchment, and whenever I pass by a mirror, I half expect to see a spectral figure standing just over my shoulder, because deep down I know one wrong decision, one careless moment, and everything can change in an instant. The Veiled Current. In the misty outskirts of Barrio Hiwaga, a fishing village along the Pampanga River in the Philippines, and the fog-laden marshes of Willow Creek, a forgotten corner of Florida's Okeechobee wetlands, locals shared hushed warnings about the waters. In both places, the rivers and lakes held secrets, currents that carried voices, reflections that lied, and debts that demanded payment. The elders spoke of a presence, neither ghost nor god, that claimed those who pried too close. Rico Salazar, a 35-year-old Filipino-American, straddled these worlds. By day, he ran a small bait shop in Willow Creek. But on weekends, he fished the Pampanga River during visits to his Lola in Barrio Hiwaga. His YouTube channel, Pinoy Reels and Chills, blended fishing tips with spooky folklore for his Filipino and American viewers. His Lola warned him never to fish past dusk or answer a voice calling his name from the water. Rico, ever the skeptic, saw it as perfect content for his next video. One foggy evening in Florida, A cryptic comment on his channel offered $600 to livestream a night fishing trip at Willow Creek's oldest dock, rumored to be haunted since a fisherman vanished there decades ago. The comment mentioned a gift waiting by the water. With bills piling up and his subscriber count plateauing, Rico couldn't resist. He packed his gear, rod, tackle box, GoPro, and a handheld recorder for ambient sounds, and drove to the dock, the fog thick as cotton. The dock creaked under Rico's weight, the lake's surface a mirror of gray mist. He went live, his chat buzzing with excitement from Quezon City to Miami. "All right, Kebabayan and friends," he said, flashing a grin. "Let's catch some fish and maybe a ghost." The water lapped softly, but his recorder picked up a faint hum, like a Kundiman sung underwater. His viewers heard it too, flooding the chat with, "What's that sound?" and "Turn back, bro." Rico cast his line, the bait vanishing into the murk. His phone, propped on a tripod, glitched, showing not Willow Creek but the Pampanga River's banks, lined with nipa huts. He blinked and the image was gone. Then, a voice, soft female speaking Tagalog, called his name from the water. "Rico, halika." His Lola's warning flashed in his mind, but his viewers urged him on, donations ticking up. He found the gift by the dock. An old walkie-talkie, its antenna bent, crackling with static. He pressed the button, and his own voice echoed back. Not from tonight, but from a childhood trip to Barrio Hiwaga, laughing as he fished with his Lola. "How the hell?" he muttered, his GoPro capturing his wide-eyed stare. The voice shifted, now a woman's, layered with others. "You heard me then, Rico. You hear me now." The lake rippled, and Rico's GoPro screen showed a reflection that wasn't his. A woman in a tattered Barros saya, her face half hidden by long, wet hair, her eyes like polished shells. He stumbled back, knocking over his tripod. The chat exploded. "Who's that behind you?" But when he turned, no one was there. The walkie-talkie hissed again, now in English. "You took from the water, Rico. Now it takes you." He remembered a night at 15, fishing in Pampanga, when Hen pulled a strange amulet from the river, a carved shell that burned his hand. He'd tossed it back, scared, but the water had whispered his name. He'd never told anyone, not even his Lola. Now the dock groaned, and figures emerged from the fog. Fishermen from Willow Creek, vendors from Barrio Hiwaga, their faces pale, their hands clutching nets that dripped black water. The woman from the reflection stepped forward, holding a cracked mirror. "You kept our secret," she said, her voice a chorus. "But you shared our story." The mirror showed Rico's face, then his Lola's, then strangers, all bound to the water, all claim. The figures chanted, a mix of Tagalog fishing songs and Seminole laments, the sound pulling at his bones. The GoPro streamed impossible scenes, jeepney sinking into Pampanga's river, boats vanishing in Okeechobee's depths. The water rose, warm and viscous, curling around Rico's ankles. "You took the amulet," the woman said. "You spoke our name. Your viewers carry it now." His chat froze, but the signal spread, a hum that reached Manila and Florida, lodging in the minds of those who watched. Rico ripped the memory card from his GoPro, throwing it into the marsh. "Someone will know," he shouted. The woman smiled, her teeth like river stones. "They'll come like you did. The current carries all." The figures closed in, their nets heavy with bones. Below the dock, the lake stirred, revealing a shape. Vast, eyeless, its form a tangle of roots and scales. The water surged, pulling Rico under. His screams drowned as the current claimed him, his gear sinking into the depths. The figures sang, their voices a lullaby of debts repaid, as the entity fed on his curiosity, his need for fame, his defiance of the warnings. 3 months later, a vlogger in Barrio Hiwaga found a memory card in the riverbank's mud. The footage, uploaded to YouTube, went viral, shared from Luzon to the Everglades. Most called it a stunt, but a fisherman in Pampanga and a streamer in Florida felt the hum in their dreams. They booked trips to Willow Creek and the Pampanga River, chasing the call that never stopped. The asylum's whisper. Hey, everyone. I'm sitting here in my dimly lit room, rain tapping against the window, trying to make sense of something that happened to me a few months ago. I've always been drawn to the abandoned, the forgotten places that hold stories no one dares to tell. That's why I got into urban exploration. It's not just about the adrenaline. It's about feeling the weight of history in places left behind. Last summer, I stumbled across an old asylum in the outskirts of Willow Creek, a small town in upstate New York. It was called St. Agnes Asylum, shuttered since the 1970s, its walls crumbling under decades of neglect. I found it while researching local legends online, on a forum called The Ghost in My Machine, where people whispered about a patient named Clara who never left. I met Clara, or what I thought was Clara, through a series of events that still haunt my dreams. It wasn't just the place. It was her presence, her voice, the way she seemed to know me. I'm not the same person I was before that night. My heart races just thinking about it, and I have to share this with you. Not to warn you, not to scare you, but because keeping it inside feels like letting her win. So here's my story, told through my eyes, my fears, my unraveling. Buckle up, it's a rough one. I've always been a night owl, so the idea of sneaking into St. Agnes Asylum after midnight didn't faze me. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and a damp chill hung in the air, making my breath fog as I parked my beat-up sedan a mile away from the asylum's rusted gates. My backpack was heavy with a flashlight, a camera, and notebook tools of my trade as an urban explorer. My heart thumped with a mix of excitement and unease. But that's normal, right? Every abandoned place has its ghosts, or so the forums say. I told myself I was ready for creaking floors and peeling paint, maybe a raccoon or two. But St. Agnes felt different. The air was too still, like the world was holding its breath. I slipped through a gap in the chain-link fence, my sneakers crunching on gravel. The asylum loomed ahead, a hulking silhouette against the starless sky. Its windows were boarded or shattered, and ivy choked the brick walls like veins. My flashlight beam danced across the entrance, revealing a faded sign. St. Agnes Asylum for the mentally ill. My stomach twisted. I'd read about the place. Shock treatments, lobotomies, patients left to rot. Clara's name came up in every story. They said she was a young woman, admitted in the 1960s for schizophrenia, who vanished after a fire in the East Wing. Some claimed she started the fire. Others said she was cursed, her spirit trapped by something darker than death. I pushed open the front door, its hinges screaming into the silence. The smell hit me with the first mold, dust, and something sour, like old medicine. My flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating a reception desk covered in cobwebs. Papers littered the floor, yellowed and curling, with names and dates I couldn't read. My chest tightened, not from fear but from the weight of the place. It felt alive, like it was watching me. I whispered to myself, "Just another explorers, Alex. Get the shots, get out." But my voice sounded small, swallowed by the vast emptiness. The deeper I went, the heavier the air grew. I wandered through a hallway lined with rusted gurneys, their wheels frozen in time. My footsteps echoed, too loud, too sharp. I kept thinking about Clara, about the stories of her whispering to orderlies, convincing them to unlock doors they shouldn't. My mind raced. Schizophrenia, they said. But what if it was something else? What if she saw things the rest of us couldn't? I shook my head, trying to focus. I was here for photos, not ghost stories. In the East Wing, where the fire had been, the walls were blackened, and the floor crunched with ash. My flashlight caught something glinting, a small, tarnished locket on the ground. I knelt to pick it up, my fingers trembling. It was heart-shaped, engraved with the initials CM. My breath hitched. Clara Monroe. It had to be hers. I opened it, and inside was a faded photo of a young woman with pale eyes and a faint smile. My heart pounded. I felt like I was trespassing, not just in the asylum but in her story. I slipped the locket into my pocket, promising myself I'd research it later. That's when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like fingers on glass. I froze, my flashlight sweeping the room. The sound came from a door at the end of the hall, half off its hinges. My gut screamed to leave, but my curiosity was stronger. I crept toward the door, each step heavier than the last. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. My mouth was dry, my pulse a drum in my ears. I pushed the door open, and the tapping stopped. The room was small, a patient's cell with a rusted bed frame and a single cracked window. My flashlight beam landed on the wall, where words were scratched into the plaster. "She sees you." My knees buckled. I told myself it was vandalism, kids messing around, but the words felt personal, like they were meant for me. I backed out, my breath shallow, and that's when I saw her. A figure stood at the far end of the hall, barely illuminated by my flashlight. She was slight, in a tattered white dress, her hair long and dark. Her head was tilted, like she was listening. "Hello?" I called, my voice cracking. She didn't move, but I felt her eyes on me, heavy and unblinking. My skin crawled. I took a step back, and she took a step forward. My heart was a wild animal in my chest. I turned and ran, my flashlight bouncing, shadows twisting like claws. I didn't stop until I reached the main hall, my lungs burning. The silence was suffocating, broken only by my ragged breathing. I leaned against a wall, clutching the locket in my pocket. It felt warm, unnaturally so, like it was alive. I told myself I was imagining things, that the figure was a trick of the light, but my mind was spiraling. What if Clara was real? What if she was here, watching me, knowing me? I'd always struggled with overthinking, my brain turning every shadow into a threat, but this felt different. This felt like she was inside my head, whispering doubts I couldn't shake. I forced myself to keep going, to finish the exploration. I needed proof, something to show on my YouTube channel. I set up my camera in what looked like an old therapy room, with a cracked mirror and a chair bolted to the floor. My reflection looked wrong, pale, hollow-eyed, like I was already half gone. I started recording, narrating the history of St. Agnes, but my voice wavered. The air grew colder, and my camera flickered. I checked the battery full. My stomach dropped. I heard the tapping again, closer now, like it was right behind me. I spun around, but no one was there. The mirror, though, it showed her. Clara, standing behind me, her pale eyes locked on mine. I stumbled back, knocking over the camera. The screen went black, but I heard her voice, soft and sharp, like a blade. "You took it," she said. "Give it back." My hand flew to the locket in my pocket. My heart screamed that this wasn't real, that I was losing it, but my body moved on its own. I pulled out the locket and held it up, my hands shaking. "Is this yours?" I whispered. The air pulsed, like a heartbeat, and the mirror cracked, spiderwebbing across my reflection. I ran again, through endless hallways, my flashlight flickering. The asylum felt alive, the walls shifting, doors appearing where they hadn't been. My mind was a storm of fear and doubt. Was I delusional? Was this schizophrenia, like Clarice? I'd always worried about my mental health. My mom had anxiety. My dad had episodes he never talked about. What if this was in my blood, waiting to break free? The locket burned in my hand and Clara's voice followed me, whispering, "You're like me. You see too much." I stumbled into a basement, the air thick with damp rot. My flashlight died, plunging me into darkness. I fumbled for my phone, my hands slick with sweat, but the screen wouldn't light. The tapping was everywhere now, echoing in my skull. I felt her breath on my neck, cold and wet, and I screamed, dropping the locket. It hit the floor with a metallic clink, and the silence that followed was worse. I sank to my knees, sobbing, my mind fracturing. I saw flashes, Clara's face, her pale eyes, her smile twisting into something cruel. She wasn't just a ghost. She was something older, something that fed on fear, on doubt, on the cracks in your soul. Then came the first twist. A light flickered on, a dim bulb swinging overhead. I wasn't alone. A man stood in the shadows, his face half hidden. He was older, maybe 50, with a crooked smile that made my blood freeze. "You found her locket," he said, his voice low and rough. "She's been waiting for you." My heart stopped. He wasn't a stranger. He was the groundskeeper, the one the forums mentioned, the one who stayed after the asylum closed. They said he was obsessed with Clara, that he performed rituals to keep her spirit alive. I realized then, the locket wasn't just hers. It was a tether, a curse he'd placed to trap her, and now me. I scrambled to my feet, but the man was faster. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like iron, and forced the locket back into my hand. "She chose you," he said, his eyes wild. "You can't leave." The tapping started again, louder, faster, and Clara's voice joined it, chanting my name. I fought, kicking and screaming, but the basement door slammed shut, locking us in. My vision blurred, my thoughts a jumble of terror and despair. I was losing myself, my reality slipping into hers. The second twist hit like a sledgehammer. The man laughed, a sound that echoed like hers, and his face changed. It wasn't a man at all. It was Clara, her form shifting, her eyes glowing with a hunger that wasn't human. The groundskeeper was a lie, a story she'd woven to lure me deeper. She wasn't a victim of the asylum. She was its master, a thing that wore human skin to feed on fear. The locket wasn't a curse. It was her, a piece of her essence, and by taking it, I'd let her in. I don't know how I escaped. I remember running, the walls closing in, her laughter chasing me. I remember the locket burning my hand, then nothing. I woke up in my car, miles away, the asylum a distant shadow at dawn. The locket was gone, but my camera was on the passenger seat, its memory card intact. My hands shook as I played the footage. It showed me in the therapy room talking to the camera, but my reflection in the mirror wasn't mine. It was Clara's, smiling, her hand on my shoulder. I haven't gone back to St. Agnes. I can't, but I hear her sometimes, in the quiet moments, whispering my name. I see her in mirrors, in shadows, in the corners of my eyes. My mind feels fractured, like I'm not just me anymore. Was she real, or am I breaking like she did? I posted the footage online, and the comments are full of theories. Ghosts, demons, my own madness. I don't know what's true. All I know is I'm different now, hollowed out, haunted by a presence I can't escape. And the worst part, I'm not sure I want to.